What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is BLM, coming with my buddy J4Y, bringing you episode number 64 of our DoD On Demand podcast. What is going on, man?
Give Diretide, please.
Oh, yes. Can we have a moment of silence for Diretide? And for all the wrists that were slit because people couldn't cope with not having Diretide.
I mean, heaven forbid that they don't do the same special event for a holiday 2 years in a row. I mean, it's not like they could be doing anything else with their time. I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts to go into it, but obviously we're not Volvo, so we don't have all the answers. But and it's so much better that they don't have a public response to this, in my opinion, because that would just probably fuel the fire that much more. There was actually an article. I know this is completely off topic, but there was an article I was starting to read. We're already off topic. It only took 20 seconds, guys. No problem. About how, like, this whole Diretide thing, about how, like, the public's been, like, outraged about it, is, like, one of the worst things in, like, the online video game history or something, just because of, like, how many people are reacting so, like, negatively and even violently against Valve employees over an event. Do you think it has to do with the items that they're missing out on, or do you think it's just because they love to kill Roshan at the end of the game?
Well, you say off topic. It's not a planned place to start, but I kind of like it because, I know you're a fan of the comedian Louis C.K.
Yes.
And he actually has some bits about having, like, all kinds of fantastic stuff, but just being so unhappy with all of it. And this is, like, a great example, and it's just, like, a general internet thing, obviously, that's sort of new to our generation and growing up alongside these fantastic contraptions, is, that you can just be so angry about things that don't matter, and Diretide's one of them, especially when you consider, too, that this is also, I don't remember when the thing that you posted on the Facebook showing Zin, as well as Legion Commander, in, like, a working game, so close to that, and people are, like, freaking out about Diretide. Well, hey guys, they're working on Ember Spirit, and they're working on Legion Commander, and they're working on bringing the heroes into the game that everybody complains about. I mean, this might be getting sort of unrelated, but I remember reading an interview with Billy Corgan, Smashing Pumpkins, and he was talking about how, like, when the internet came up and they were doing stuff, they were, like, so excited that they could give fan stuff, but people just wanted. It didn't matter how much they put out, and then eventually they were just like, whatever, you all can deal with it. This is it. Because obviously, fans are always going to want more. They're never going to be happy.
Oh, yeah.
But that being said, you should all be happy because they're doing a fantastic job, and they've put an interesting patch out, which we're still going to be talking about a little bit tonight.
Speaking of people who are putting out content that's awesome in a regular fashion, hats off to ourselves. This is 3 weeks running. We have done a Tuesday episode 3 weeks in a row. I honestly, like, I tweeted it this morning. I'm like, so this is another episode tonight, 3 weeks running. I'm like, is this a dream or reality? And it just feels like almost back to our basics, except, like, with our new and improved format. But I don't know. I think I'm pretty happy that we've been consistent. I think our viewers have probably been pretty happy about it. So I don't know. Shout out to ourselves. You gotta do that.
Yeah, at J4Y, hashtag awesome job, hashtag, I don't know, I've been trying to get my Twitter to work, so I'm just like, I still don't know what anything is. But I did make a post, if you guys followed me, to actually sort of clue you all in on what part of our show is going to be about, talking about this article that showed up on Join Dota that their stats man actually wrote, about some of the stats coming out of 6.79. But before all that,
yes.
We also want to say that on the back of him getting on a regular schedule again and actually doing it and not just saying it and all this stuff. Me and J4Y, we're definitely looking to improve and expand and try and get more people involved in this because we certainly love doing it. I hope you guys know that we love doing it. And, we're certainly open to any suggestions to try and get the word out. And, we appreciate you guys spreading the word. I actually, this past week at work, found some dude that liked Dota. And I was like, oh, that's so cool that do you like that? And then, like, some other random guy overheard that and then actually watched an episode later. Like, he was like, I watched 15 minutes of it. I have no idea what it is, but I found it.
But your voice was so soothing, and I was excited just listening.
It's like, give me those docile tones, BLM. I just need to I hear that voice. Lull me into a nice little. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah. So if you guys have any suggestions, of course, we're always open to them. But we're just looking to get the word out.
Right.
Feel me?
Yeah. So, like we were kind of talking about before, we figured a lot of you are regular, just in general, podcast listeners, because it's definitely a group of people. There's not many people who are like, you know what, I just want to listen to this one podcast, and that's all I do. Well, I would understand if it was ours. But, okay, this is like the cocky episode, but that's fine. But still, so, yeah, any tips, email us at dodondemand@gmail.com or Facebook message us or anything, really. We'll see it, so don't feel free to hold back from us.
Tweet at me. It might teach me something about how does I Twitter.
I'll tell him how to look at it when he gets tweeted at. He'll be fine. He may even do a retweet. God knows. We'll see what he's capable of soon.
Ooh, let's slow this down.
Let's do some shoutouts too, really quick. I just want to give a couple to, speaking of tweets, to Tyson Fawcett and Riley Brando, who I asked a question on the DoD On Demand Twitter, and I was asking who's your favorite support and why. And Tyson said Visage was his because apparently the birds do work, is how he put it. And I responded like, well, I bet they do for people who can control them, because that's a fair point. But I definitely get where he's coming from. Then Riley said Earthshaker because he can ruin any party with a Blink Dagger and Echo Slam, and that is a valid point.
What's funny is actually just to talk about both of those heroes. We're going to talk about Visage a little bit more in talking about the article, but I have actually gotten to see it with some interaction with the new and improved Luna, which is kind of hilarious because Luna is just like, LOL, your birds are hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
And it's actually kind of a really nice counter to try and deal with the fact that Visage can sort of just try and scout out and see what you're doing. And I wish I could remember the game, but a fight in particular where Luna's doing Roshan and Visage is just trying to get in and see what health he's at, and winds up losing one of the birds to the glaives. So definitely an interesting thing to think about. And another cool thing about just Shaker recently is Puppy, I was watching a game, picks up the Earthshaker, doesn't even go for the Blink Dagger, actually winds up going for a Necrobook, which is something we're going to be talking about some more. But it's kind of neat that these heroes or at least with Shaker, this hero that you assume, oh man, the passive gold per second is increased, so it means an easier Blink Dagger. He's just going to go Blink Dagger right off the bat. And then you actually wind up seeing these heroes going for different items instead of to get up in your face.
Well, that vision range increasing means Blink Dagger's no longer, who needs it at that point?
Obsolete.
I mean, 100 rage or whatever, that's enough, what I mean?
Pudge only now. Pudge only item.
Pudge for days. And I think you had a shout out you really wanted to give quick?
Yeah, I just want to say, Joe Stivrins, I probably mispronounced that, dropped by and asked for a link to the documentary that I was talking about last episode, and I actually not only did that for you, Joe, I also put show notes in there. What's up? So there's some show notes. You can go ahead and hop around the episode number 63, post-patch potluck. So yeah. This episode, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. One of the things that...
Before we do,
okay,
I wanted to do a quick
little
appetizer to the meat and potatoes.
Oh,
they may be carby as well, but I just wanted to throw a little thing here. I had a question for you that was posed on the Reddit, DoD Reddit. I want to know what you thought. So someone asked, is Elder Titan holding a staple gun or a briefcase?
He's holding the world's most awkward horseshoe.
I always actually thought about that, but never came out with it outright. But it's a very valid point. And actually, the top response on Reddit was a briefcase-sized staple gun. So, to be fair, that's probably most legit. But I just thought that was an interesting point to bring up.
I'm just literally picturing him punching people with a staple gun, and just how painful that sounds.
That sounds really painful. I mean, it won't even it might prick your skin, but still, getting punched in the face with one of those things wouldn't feel great either way.
No.
All right, now I'm sorry. The appetizer's complete. Okay, we're on.
That was good. That was a good little laugh. I kind of wanted to just go back on what I was talking about last week in my 100 games of Venomancer.
Yes.
And that wonderful experience. I gotta brag a little bit, guys. 28 games played, 6 losses. That's a 78% win rate.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say that I'm now sick of it. I'm a little tired. I've done every item build I can think of, and I would love for you all to come by the Twitter and tell me troll things to do.
Oh, there we go.
Because I've done a good bit of all of them. And it's been a really neat experience. I know you've been a part of some of those games. Do you have? I know we talked about it a little bit last week.
I already had one idea, but I'm not sure if you've done it yet or not.
Okay, what is it?
Have you jungled Enid?
Sort of. I haven't like started in the jungle.
So you pulled the lane and then you moved in?
It's like I hit level 2, hit level 3, and then I'll just like do the easy camp with wards.
Is the poison strong enough at level 1 to really kill those creeps early on? If you play on all the creeps?
You need the wards.
Mm-hmm. Well,
because what you can do is when you pull the creeps towards the end of where they leash, if you put wards there, then you can just keep pulling the creeps into the wards, and they shoot them, but the creeps don't attack the wards.
Yeah.
So it's a little slow, especially in the early levels, but it's definitely something once you get some levels under your belt you can do if you need to dip out of the lane real quick and try and put some items together. Okay. But oh my gosh, Bloodstone, I've done.
Bloodstone?
Some Heaven's Halberd, I've done Necrobook, I've been solo mid as Venomancer and gone Midas first. What haven't I done, Jay? It's a little ridiculous. Done the mech, done. I haven't done Vanguard yet, actually, which surprises me.
That does surprise me. That was Trixie's. That was his staple in the mid.
That was the build.
That was the build. And it's buffed now. I mean, come on. There's so many reasons to get it.
I will say that actually this week, again, I can't remember the game unfortunately, but an Elder Titan going the Vanguard, and it was really interesting, and it sort of reminded me of how we were talking about and watching that documentary and seeing some of the International 1 games where it was like Beastmaster with Vanguard, and the whole idea was just that you're just like fat and up in people's faces and they can't really do anything. And of course, you're Beastmaster, you're giving the inner beast aura. If you're Elder Titan, right, you put the spirit out there, you do that initial damage, you pull him back, and then you're hitting like a truck anyway. If you can just survive after that, that's pretty legit. And you know, that's something too that I kind of wanted to talk about in reference to just sort of the items that have been coming out in the professional scene, is the fact that now supports have this money to do stuff with, and how that's impacted the game. The big stat that I actually kind of want to drop, and will hopefully be a nice little discussion between you and I, because I know we're at sort of different ends of the spectrum, is that Necrobook has been picked up in 6.79 as much as it was picked up in 6.78 already. And this stat is a couple days old, so it's probably been surpassed at this point. And like I was saying earlier, you know, Shaker's picking up Necrobook, and even Naga Siren's going Midas. That's a whole other thing. But now these supports have all this money to try and do new stuff with.
Yeah, that's and you know, we went into really, I think, great lengths when we discussed that part in the patch about how the increased gold over time, about streaks ending, about all sorts of different things about this gold being nice and fat for these supports. And you know, it's not like, okay, they're not on like carry levels of gold, obviously, but it's enough to get a medium to big sized item in the game, especially earlier on. Now, of course, if you are that 5 position, let's be honest, you're still going to be the ward bitch, and that's just going to be your life. But even still, at that point, you could probably get yourself a Vlad or something pretty for the team. But yeah, it's really interesting to see what these guys decide to go with this extra gold. You know, the most common thing for support has always been the mech. Like, that's been expected almost of most supports to get a mech for their team generally. Of course, that does differ based on supports and who you have and what slot. But that's obvious. Besides that, though, there's endless possibilities. I mean, you expect not a damage item generally. You expect something that's utility based, or something that allows them to survive longer to do one of their spells or abilities in a fight. That was a very vague reference to BKB, essentially, but I could have just said that. But alright, do you want to just jump into this item, since apparently we're doing a brawl, or what do you want to do?
Well, I mean, just as you're saying that, I think what's been most interesting as far as what supports have been doing that doesn't... I'm still really like about it, and I'm like hoping it's a fad, is the fact that supports are going hand of Midas. And not that they're going hand of Midas, it's that they're going a lot of hands of Midases. Like, you would think the King Midas was some kind of octopus. You would think that he just he has hands everywhere.
Did you say octopi have hands? And I just said octopi. I think I said that correctly.
I'm
yeah, it's
very
not
proud of you.
octopussies. Or
All right.
continue.
Anyway, it's that you'll wind up going into some games and seeing 5 Hands of Midases.
Yes.
And that's hardly an exaggeration.
Wow.
And what's even more disturbing is the fact that I remember one game in particular where a Naga Siren picks up a Hand of Midas at the 30-minute mark. And this is an item that, of course we've always said in the past is, oh, it's this thing you need to build early. There was even this sort of like old stigma of, if you don't get it by this time, it's not going to pay for itself, so don't even get it. So, something around the 15 to 17-minute mark, there's no point. Don't even bother. Do you have any thoughts or feelings, or
I have a lot of feelings.
do you just find it yucky, like I kind of do? Just
the Hand of Midas thing, yes, I really do. I've always saw Hand of Midas ever since we way long ago. We actually had an episode where we talked a lot about Hand of Midas at one point because it was starting to really become popular on the scene. I can't remember the number, unfortunately, but yeah, it's always been to me an item to really boost your experience. Now, granted, in that regard, supports can benefit a lot. They're always behind on levels, but the issue, well, I have a couple issues. First of all, you're not getting it very quickly at all, generally, as a support. So you probably don't have a number for me here, but I'm guessing the average time for support to get it is in the 20s to 30s of minute time, probably around there.
On average, before 30, it's probably between 10 and 20.
Okay, well that's a little better still. But I was going to say, at least in that earlier part of the game, it depends, I guess, who your carry is or what your situation is, but a lot of times jungling is reserved for your carry. He's going to farm in short lane, he's going to go into the jungle, clear it out. Now, it's not too bad to take a big creep every now and then for experience, but still, besides that, I don't honestly. Obviously, they don't really need the gold from it, so they're going to use it basically just for experience. I'm not that big a fan of it. I feel like there's other ways they can be useful with spending, 2,000 gold or 1,900 gold, excuse me. But also the fact that you brought up that it's also later in the game they're getting picked up. You said 30 minutes at one point. I mean, at that point, it must have been situational against a Chen or an Enchantress or something, because if it not to be used against someone else's neutral creep, I really wouldn't understand it at that point, because 1,900 gold at that phase of the game is so substantial for buybacks or for completing a big item for a support.
Yeah, I don't have the lineups in front of me. I want to say it wasn't against a hero that you could say is like, oh yeah, you're just countering the Chen or you're countering the Enchantress. But yeah, it's really weird. I just find it strange. I mean, it's kind of with the increase in the gold, I'm kind of still iffy about it. I sometimes feel uncomfortable about how much money I have being one of these a 4. Sometimes oh, I just don't have room for wards and stuff anymore. I don't.
You need your own courier to just drop wards for you.
Yeah, just give Lone Druid's Bear some mana so that I can do stuff with it, and that can be my support. Mm-hmm. How about instead of 0.6 or 0.8, let's do 0.7 for a while. Let me see how that feels. But I mean, the cool thing about Hand of Midas before was just that we had not only the carry situation, but like you were saying, it's also really good for the experience. And I think the sort of weird thing that was almost a trend for a while was having the mid warlock that would go first item Hand of Midas.
Yeah.
In order to get the experience, in order to get that ultimate overpoweringly strong, because you're just able to drop the level 11 ultimate on people that aren't able to contend with it, and just landing the flaming fists and able to do damage that people just can't keep up with. I sort of like that, and like I said, I mean, I even tried doing a mid Veno where I'm trying to get the Hand of Midas early because I want to get the levels up, and it was fine. I've played some games of support where I go to the Hand of Midas to see what it's like, and it's fine. I think there's going to come that time where people are still trying to settle down with the patch, and there's going to come a time where the crushing defeats happen because supports aren't doing their job, or they're not getting the items up that they need. And especially with Necrobook being such a popular item now, Mass Necro is not a new thing. That's happened before, and it's been super strong. And why wouldn't, if you're up for big money and you're seeing them go Midases, let's just mass Necrobooks and see what they can do. And the answer is going to be next to nothing.
That's definitely an interesting point. When you keep saying mass necro, all I can think about is that Korean game where they mass blade mail against Tinker. But I know it's completely unrelated. But massing items can work in certain situations. I know that for a fact. But and I was also thinking about Lich with the Hand of Midas and how silly that would be. But that's just a whole nother thing there. GW Mass, if we can minus the Necro Creeps, actually that's something we're getting into later, but no, the answer is no. Ever since this patch, you cannot Midas those creeps. So really, it's going to be used on the neutral creeps, essentially, as it always mainly has been in the past, or the Chen Enchantress, etc. creeps.
I mean, the thing I think with Midas coming up is because of the passive gold increase, right? The 1400 gold isn't so bad anymore because it's more reliable to be able to get. You can sort of like, it's a lot easier to bank on the fact that you're gonna come upon a time where you have 1400 gold as a support. It's a lot more likely now, especially because the wards last longer. Because if you're destroying wards, you're getting some of your money back for buying the sentries. So you're definitely all around less strapped for money than you were before. And so okay, yeah, I can get that. But you know, I still like, especially that like the 30-minute one, that just feels wrong. And
that feels very wrong in general. Like I said, it literally should have to be for counter purposes only, or against against Warlock ulti. Was there a Warlock in the game?
I don't think so.
Because Midas is useful there as well. But, however, I want to throw 3 items at you here.
Oh.
So, 3 items.
Throw them away.
Well, I guess it's 4, including the Hand of Midas. Hand of Midas is 1900 gold. Vladimir's offering 2050. Mechanism 2306. And Drums of Endurance 1775. So, all within about 100 to 300 gold of this Hand of Midas. Now, at the 15-20 minute mark, which would you rather have your support have?
Yep.
Isn't it kind of obvious when you state it like that? Like, any of those items seem better for a support to have than a Hand of Midas. And the Hand of Midas, the thing is, it's like an investment. It's always been an investment, let's be honest. It's always an investment for later on in the game. But it's so hard to justify it. It really, I guess, depends on your game or your lineup. God, you don't know what I'm saying. But, you know, if you're really, like, you're anti-Major Alchemist, you're like, you know, screw it, I'm just going to wait till he gets to 40 minutes and I'm going to win the game. Well, then maybe the Hand of Midas was a good thing to keep up in levels with the rest of your team and to invest in that late game. But otherwise, if you're trying to take towers earlier, if you're trying to feed gold that way, or, you know, there's team fights coming up, any of the other 3 would definitely give superior benefits for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, and there are a bunch of others too. I mean, I just pulled up the list of items while you were saying those. I mean, Force Staff, you could get an urn and a medallion. Like, there are a ton of great item choices that you can get as a support for that much money. I mean, a Ghost Scepter as well, a fantastic item if you're a support, just because of the general stats. And if you're against a hard carry or something that's going to be able to do a lot of physical DPS to you, you can ignore it. You know, I can even, you know, going back to sort of what we were saying earlier, the late ones I don't like. I can even see on your 4 if you want to put a Midas on certain heroes because, you know, you just really want their levels to be up and them to be able to get some kind of important item for the late game. All right, that's fair. But, you know, when you're seeing like 3 and 4 on a team, which has happened, no.
See, they just clear the enemy creep wave in the base. Just all Hand of Midas at once. You only have to cast 1 spell. Just boom, Hand of Midas. You gain that little experience that dings you 16 right before the fight, and you're like, thank you, Hand of Midas. That's the reason we won.
That's
every
exactly
situation, every time. Every single time. And I was actually starting to look again. Blink Dagger and Force Staff, also around that cost range. So I'm just saying, these other things could possibly be a lot more useful. But I'm also thinking of an immediate benefit, and it's hard to look at an investment and say, oh, what impact did this have throughout the game? But that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other side of the coin, if you want to try and play devil's advocate, is, okay, supports are going to fall off late, so you're giving them this item that's going to potentially help them scale better should the game go late. But it's like this thing where you're saying, I guess if you're surrendering the early game, if you've like put yourself at some kind of mild disadvantage where you don't feel like you can engage the enemy team and you're a support and you're like, well, we can't really go aggressively against them. We kind of have to sit back. I can't really do anything else. I'm coming up on the money to do it. because at the end of the day, the Hand of Midas does make gold from nothing, living up to its
Start
name.
from the bottom. Now we're here.
Yes, yes. And so
Drake was a support. Who knew? Sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. And so I think in that respect, it sounds a little bit better, but it's still like I don't know. I think it'll end, but it'll probably be around for at least a little while longer.
And GB brings up a good point. How big of a difference do supports make late game? How big of a difference does it mean to get those levels in the 30 to 40 minute mark for that support? I guess honestly, once again, it's pretty situational. Like leveling up CM after she already has the maxed out Q and W and her ulti, maxing out the aura stats at that point, not really that important later in the game. So maybe for that hero, not as important. But there may be other heroes where you're like, oh geez, I could really benefit, like, Shadow Demon or Lich with his aura, his armor. There's other examples there where maybe those levels really are more important than one of these other items.
Yeah, or even like, I'm just thinking again about that just terrific Elder Titan with the Vanguard. If you had yourself a Hand of Midas on top of that to help you get to that point, then all right, you're up in people's faces. You're providing this sort of dual role, because now it's not just about what you're able to sort of do with your spells or what you're able to put around the map. It's also that you have this sort of sustainability, this ability to do a decent amount of damage and maintain yourself in a team fight. That's of course a lot different than the way that some supports used to be in the past, and of course the way that like Crystal Maiden especially has always been viewed, like you drop the ultimate so that people know exactly where they are and they kill you instantly, and then they laugh and they go on about their business. I think that the late Hand of Midas has to be like, we just need our supports to try and stay relevant through items, through getting the expensive support items, the Scythe of Vise, that sort of thing, than trying to...
The thing is, this is really long Hand of Midas discussion, but this episode's going to be a lot longer. That's fine, though. But is it going to be on the team that's snowballing, okay, the team that's winning? If you're the team that's down and out, and see, that's kind of the thing. If you're the team that's kind of like been losing, or you've already lost a couple towers, and you can now afford this Hand of Midas, is that the time you're going to want it, or do you want to be on the team, or does that even make a difference for these supports?
Honestly, after we've argued against all this time, I think it go either way, because obviously, like you're saying, if you're finding a tremendous amount of gold income and you're already sitting on an advantage, Artosis said it, when you're ahead, get further ahead.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's fair. If you lost your outer towers and they're not pressing you, and you find this is your opportunity to maybe, like I was saying earlier, if you're behind, you can't find a way to engage them, but you have this sort of passive time to do what you can, maybe that's a good opportunity. I always would never think in my head as a support hero, I'm going Hand of Midas this game, unless you really understand that, like, I need this critical level advantage, like with the Warlock thing. Like, unless you're running a tri-lane and the 4 is pooling and he's this hero that really does a lot with experience, so he's actually going to use the pool camp to try and farm himself up the Midas so that he has this great transition. Unless it's something like that, I just, I don't know.
Well, that's up to debate, I suppose, and we'll see if it's a trend that continues in the scene, and how they really, maybe we can get more empirical evidence and see why they're really getting it in the situations they're getting it. I don't believe it's going to become a staple on supports, because if that's the case, they're going to probably modify the item somehow, because they don't want everyone valuing the item. They don't want any one item to be necessary on every hero. Obviously, no game wants that. You need to balance it out. So we'll see if that actually is a trend, and if it is, then we'll see it changed, I'm sure. So
Jay said it first. Change Iron Branches. Too strong.
Iron Branches, too much stats. Honestly, too much stats. You gotta nerf that a bit.
Do you really need one of each? Like, come on.
Yeah, seriously. So on to what actually I think you want to talk about here, the Necronomicon.
Yes. So, again, big item, especially since the patch that's sort of come out. And it's one that actually, as I've been playing all these Venomancer games, that's actually kind of been like my staple go-to item. And I've tried reals hard to convince some of the people I play with, like, hey, we should get Necro books, guys. It's really good. We should get this item. It's fantastic. And just the people don't, and that's fair. It's this item that definitely in the pub scene, I think you don't see it all. And I'm here to make a case for it because again, it's also coming up in the pro games more. I think in part because of this increase to the passive gold per second, in part because to Genobeam's question earlier, you can't hand of Midas them. You also can't use Helm of the Dominator to mind control them like you could before. And really, when you think about that, it's like you're building this whole item that, let's say, 80% of it is the 2 creeps that creates the range creep, which provides an aura and has an on-use mana burn, the melee creep that has mana break on attack, does damage to the person that kills it. Why would you build this unit if 40% of it can be either instantly destroyed and converted into extra gold for the enemy team and experience, or just mind controlled? 40% of your item is now turned against you.
Yeah.
So now that these changes have come in, I mean, I certainly think it's a much more improved item, and certainly one that's worth building. What are your thoughts about it in the current state of the game?
Yeah, it's undergone a lot of buffs. It seems like a lot of all the way back to 6.72C. It's been getting just steadily better, and first of all, I just want to state that I'm not against the item. I really am
hate
not.
it.
It's the worst thing in the world. Please, I'd rather have an Iron Branch in that slot than this thing. It is OP, so I mean that's why. But no, I listed out what I see as some pros and cons, and my cons list has one more than my pros list. So maybe this is why. Although some of my pros have multiple things on the line, so we'll see how it goes. But I listed out for the pros that it's great for push, obviously. It's got detection for heroes as well as warding or dewarding. That's also nice, especially now that you make 50 gold off sentries. That's just another perk there. And if it's kill and fight, you get a big burst of damage for your side. It's a ton of damage, actually, if they kill that warrior. Also, there's a bunch of mana burn to go around from both the warrior and the archer. And the move speed, attack speed aura. I mean, in general, these things are very useful, and now they last 40 seconds. I mean, they're kind of... I mean, you can ignore them, and that's actually where it's starting to come into cons here. They can be CC'd, so if you have decent AoE whatever on your team, they may not be that beneficial. The total cost, this is where I kind of want... I'm actually doing something here similar to what I was doing with the Hand of Midas, where I started thinking about the cost of this item and what else I could get for my money, especially on a support or someone. But total cost up to 5,200 at rank 3, and that's the way I'm going to look at it, because that's obviously what you're trying to build up to get that true sight and whatnot. The Sheepstick's 5,700. Now that one, that might not be such a great thing for a lot of supports. It does give you those nice stats and a 3.5 second crowd control, which is great at times. But if they do have a BKB, I mean, that's not going to help you much at all there anyways. A Lincoln Sphere, now that that's been buffed majorly, that could be a possible good alternative for that cost. The Aghanim Scepter, and this is where it starts getting more situational. BKB Aghanims, 4,239.50. It's cheaper, and they may do more work for you depending on the hero. You know, like a BKB for Witch Doctor or Crystal Maiden could change the difference in a fight for your team. The Aghanim Scepter, that's usually a luxury, but you never know. Support Luna might get that, that kind of thing.
Of course.
Of course, the typical support Luna. And then I said, for our level 3 Dagon, it's 5,220. So, just saying, if you wanted to go that route, it's available.
For face roll strats instead of the Necro books, you just go mass Dagon.
All 5 Dagons. I remember that Na'vi game where they were all building Dagons, and it won terrifically. It was so silly, but they did win. I said another con, it requires micro. That might be more of a personal con, but I'm just saying in general, it does require micro compared to other items. And then they give 100 gold bounty each, so 200 gold generally at the end of the day. But they are strong. They really are, and I definitely can understand the usefulness of them. And like I said, they do continue to get buffed, including the Midas and Helm of Dominator mind control thing. Is the Midas especially, and now like you're talking about Midas being picked up regularly by people. That's just so nice to have that protection, that protective layer. It's almost like they maybe saw it coming. I don't even know, but they preemptively just said, no, we're not going to let that happen. We did test, and Chen and Enchantress, all of them can still mind control it or take it over. So they are able to be controlled through those methods, but that's about it.
Clink's also able to sacrifice them with his ultimate as well.
Mm-hmm.
So another great sort of like hard counter to the Necro book. Not that you can necessarily see a Necro book coming. But yeah, the thing that I have really enjoyed from getting to build it so much on Venomancer is that you were talking about some of the items that are sort of comparable cost. The nice thing about this is that the biggest piece is the 1350 for the recipe, which is kind of expensive, but it's cheaper than Midas, right? 1250 for the recipe. Apologies, and it's obviously something that you can build up. You are getting something out of it at the 2700. Like you were saying, it's obviously not the biggest thing, but it's something that I've even have tried to do good micro on in the midst of team fights. But it's an item that I've gotten kills with after the fight is over. When you consider, too, when you get in these team fights, how quickly that Necronomicon warrior attacks for, hitting for 75 plus 60% of the 75 mana he burns. So he's, hitting for over 100 easily every second, faster in a second, 0.75. He's also doing this 600 damage with Last Will at rank 3. He can just pump out a ton of damage. And this, even to me, is one of these things that you can almost sort of, if you don't feel comfortable trying to micro these units, you don't think you can, really the only one that you super have to micro is just the archer, and at that point it's just saving the archer's life. You can legit just control group your hero and these units together, pop it during a team fight, and sick them on whomever that you're also going for. And if you die, then you still have something to control. If you're backing out of a push or whatever, okay, well, I need to make sure my archer doesn't get killed. It's really not that complicated of an item to micro. And to also list one more awesome pro that I think is kind of overlooked is the fact that if you're trying to push high ground, push that base with a Necronomicon, and the enemy is able to pull the creeps off of the tier 3 tower, if those creeps are then in the base and your Necro unit is attacking, the melee is attacking the tower, he will start tanking it for you. So even if they're trying to draw the creeps off the tower, you can still very safely apply damage to that tower, and I think that's a really great way to try and break that tier 3 tower.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a little surprised that I don't see more Nature's Prophets building it these days, but it's always been such a solid, effective item, and with the treants, you could push for days. But yeah, I do like that aspect of it as well. I mean, ever since that, and also the archer, you're talking about him, ever since 6.73, when he got his range increased from 250 to 600 on the mana burn. I mean, the mana burn for the archer has been the most important aspect, obviously, for him. Just draining that mana instantly can be a really big difference against a support or someone with low mana pool. That'd be really great. But yeah, I don't know. I could definitely see it being used. I've always been able to see it being, like, when I see like a game and I'm like, that guy picks, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Like, there's either they're starting to push, they need detection, or they want to push heavy. I mean, like, it's not a bad item by any stretch of the imagination. But I just, it always begs the question: is that the right item for the right situation? That's all.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. What do you think about getting in this article?
I think we might as well, since we've already been going for like 40 minutes or something.
Well, then we should probably get to the article.
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, and I will absolutely put this in the notes to the YouTube video, and we can also throw it up on the Facebook this week. There's a nice little article on the Join Dota website. Stats Corner Maiden Chill 6.79, where Nehaz, the stats man over there, actually goes through and looks at some of the heroes that were sort of coming out of the patch with either an increased win percentage or a decreased win percentage, and increased their picks, and what heroes had been picked a lot overall and how they compared to the previous patch. And just looking for the 5 most picked heroes at this point, this was 6 days ago, in 6.79, Crystal Maiden, Visage, Clockwork Luna, and Timbersaw. What are your thoughts there, Jay? Do any of those really surprise you, or do you find any of these heroes kind of an interesting?
The only one that surprised me was Clockwork, and from what the article goes to say, is that the reason he's kind of become a staple right now is because of some offlaners in the current scene who've been really, like Bone7, Mag, Bulba, and other people who just love the hero and have always loved it. Because in this patch, he didn't get a buff. He destroys trees with cogs, and that's about it. It's not like he's been improved. It's not like anything drastic has changed. He's the same guy he's always been. The reason, and we kind of talked about how this may bring in a new aggressive meta with all these changes, and that maybe another reason why he's getting picked is because he's obviously an amazing aggressive hero. He's going to initiate for you. He's going to be harassing. He's going to interrupt fights. He's always been a great hero. But the fact that he was up here number 3, I don't know. It kind of did throw me off just because of I just didn't. I expected people that were heavily affected by the patch to be up here on this list.
Yeah, I mean, he got that nice indirect buff, and the fact that it's easier to be an offlaner these days, right? Because of where the creeps meet and everything. So he can do it a little bit more safely. And, he's always, or not always, but of recent been a pretty meta-relevant hero. So I don't know if I was surprised as much to see him, but I was sort of surprised to see Luna pop up so much. I mean, she did get a great buff, and I will admit to having not given it as many props as it deserved.
I did.
Yeah, you're okay. You revel in that moment. But yeah, she's actually at the point this was done was picked up 66 times. So her record actually winding up being 38 and 28. So enjoying a winning percentage, which is pretty sick.
And a relatively good one. Definitely over 50%. And I like how they include the rank here on this article. Luna was 51st picked, now up to number 4. So, I mean, I'm just saying, it's quite a jump for a hero. And especially as a hard carry. I mean, the other hard carries, Alchemist, not in that list, and there's some other heroes that I expected to be, maybe not in the top 5, but top 10, and, they did get the nerfs, and that's what happens. They start falling off a little bit. But not completely. Lifestealer, not in that list. That's kind of, what happened to him. I mean, there's things like that where it's just where these heroes goes. Crystal Maiden number 1. I'm not hugely surprised, and the reason for that is she just meshes well with all types of lineups. She's always been that way. She has the team fight aspect. She has early game amazing pressure. She has global aura if you want to push or you want to. I mean, she just really synergizes with anything. So, I honestly am no surprise at all. I kind of am surprised she's ahead of Visage. That kind of threw me for a curve. Yeah,
that is very interesting, actually. That surprises me quite a bit. I can't honestly say why that would be, because I still think Visage is super strong and, potentially more powerful than the Crystal Maiden. But, I, of course, love CM, and I'm super happy to see her. And, especially because of, the Tranquil Boots thing now, I mean, obviously the phase boots have always been really nice to sort of get on her because her attack sucks and her speed sucks, and the phase boots are a great answer to both of those things. But the Tranquil Boots, it's cheap, it gets you super fast, it really helps you play aggressive and mine those runes to help out your middle laner as well. So I agree with you completely, and just that she's just a solid hero, and since her aura has sort of been of more benefit to her, she's been a strong pick, and I've enjoyed seeing that. The next bit here, the swing in win percentages, the most winningest heroes: Doom, Bounty Hunter, Lich, Luna, Mirana, and Venomancer. So again, my friend, what do you think?
Who's surprised by this list? Not me, for one. Well, there is the one surprise, and that's probably because I haven't been watching as many games as I've liked to recently. The big surprise for me is Mirana. I don't know what the hell she's doing there. I've always loved the hero, don't get me wrong. I even have the skin for her, the whole $20 awesome skin that someone made. Great hero, and apparently, according to this article, Sing Sing has a lot to do with that. He's undefeated or something on this hero, so that's pretty impressive. But Doom, we talked about him for a long time. The buffs he's getting are just out of control. I don't even know. He's the next tree protector. Just wait for the nerf bat to come his way. It's definitely on. Get your games in with Doom now. That's all I have to say. Get your games in now, because that's coming. The Lich, the Veno, God, we know how good they've been. You've talked about Veno too much at this point. They're so buffed. They're really strong supports. The Luna, well, we just kind of sussed that. And the Bounty Hunter, that was kind of interesting, but it makes perfect sense. With the new aggressive kind of meta, with the fact that track is just so valuable on a team that snowballs, definitely, and such a strong offlaner. You know, if you get a good player on it, it's not easy at all to kill him. He can do so much ganking. He can do so much. He's safe. You know, he's safe to play in that off lane. He's got a lot of potential for him. So, you know, that's actually a really good record. That maybe is higher than I would expect with him, but still not that surprising to have him on that list.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like he got all that help from just like the offlane switching, and you know, the article also kind of gives him some credit because the game's pretty skirmishy right now. There are a lot of early engagements, and of course, he's a hero that takes complete advantage of that. But you know, the Lich one I think is huge, and it's good. I like it. To be honest with you, I didn't realize that his win percentage was close to 50%, as it was in 6.78, sitting at the 48.2%. But you know, the article mentions that Lich is banned 4 times more than ever before, because of the change to his sacrifice. And like you said, you know, he's enjoying this really healthy win percentage. He's a pretty consistent ban, really, in many areas, not just in Korea, like where I saw him the first time getting banned a lot. Really just all across the board. It's almost like replaced IO, it seems like, it's this staple ban that needs to happen, which is sort of up in that spot now.
Yeah, and actually, GM asked why Broodmother's not on this list. He's not in Captain's Mode yet. So, you know, hold your guns here. Hold your horses. We may see that emergence of Broodmother when she's finally released into the wild, and I don't think it'll be very long. I think you know, they might do some tweaking, but she's probably going to be out here soon enough in Captain's Mode, and then we'll get to see her true power, because she was so popular for a while. You know, that off lane, she would go in it, split push all day, and people didn't have a lot of answers for, except for Tidehunter, which is hilarious now. But maybe he'll come back too. But yeah, who knows? But yeah, I like the stats that they're putting in. You know, about the Lich being banned so much. That's crazy. The Veno damage, he's done more than 5 times than he was before the current patch, averaged 3k damage per match. I was starting to compare your Veno record to professionals, and, well, you obviously take the cake, but, you know, what can we say?
It's pretty much the same thing.
It's almost the same level of play. It's so close. But it definitely is something. And apparently they give a little... I don't know what to call it, an honorable mention for Magnus. The only reason he's not on this list is because there's only 11 games played for him in 6.79. But apparently he has, there's a lot of wins. And apparently S4 has played over half the games for Magnus total in this patch. So there's that. But Magnus, I mean, he's going to be always one of those heroes that's a staple for a good team fight. I
mean, buffed to the turn speed. Come on.
Gotta have that turn speed. You gotta have that. Bat Rider needed it that one time, so, you know.
The thing that I like about, I guess, particularly Venomancer, I mean, obviously some of these are pretty, like, sort of blown out of proportion. Like, you're not going to see Doom running around with, you know, an 80% win rate for forever.
No, probably not.
But, like, the Venomancer one I really enjoy. You know, he went from having a 43% win rate in 6.78, now 53. So, great. So he's a little over half. That's a great spot to be in. I mean, I just like that heroes like that have sort of gotten put into a position where they're at about 500. Obviously, the other heroes on the list sort of wind up getting pushed up to 60 and higher percentage. But again, I think that's just because of like the new patch and people having to learn to deal with this new stuff, and you know, having to sort of find more answers for these offlaners now that they have a little bit more viability. And especially with like Luna becoming stronger, she's, I think, going to be really interesting to watch, because I'm not really sure that there is a particular answer, especially just there is no answer to her buff, right? Like, that's just cool.
Right.
And you just sort of have to either go back to going through the old ways to deal with her and seeing if you can continue to do those, or find new ways to fight her. And I'm really curious to see what comes out of the professional scene as an answer for her.
Lockdown is your answer. Beastmaster, like, Enigma, Bat Rider, Bane. There's your team. I don't even care who your 5th is. Doesn't matter.
Oh.
Team lockdown. And then everyone builds a Dagon and you win. That's essentially it. Dagons and Necros for everyone. Necronomicons. But yeah, I don't know. The 29% increase in win rate for Doom. Pretty silly. But right, 21 games played. That's not a lot. That's not a big sample size. So as you said, we'll see more games go on. But I honestly think that the Nerf Bat, believe me, you know, Ice Rocks, he's kind of lining up that going for that home run here for that Nerf Bat. So just have your fun. That's all I'm gonna say. Have your fun. You want to get to this third and final here, which is makes me happy. Actually, it made me smile
Ooh.
when I looked at this list. It really did.
Ouch.
I take
Ouch.
pleasure in people's misery. I guess I don't know, but this
See
is
for
the
what? Sipping on the haterade.
every day. This is the loss chart, and it compares win percentages from 6.78 to now their current record of these heroes. And at the top of the list is kind of a funny one because of how initially a lot of people interpreted it. But Night Stalker being at the top of the list, Darkseer, Queen of Pain, Enchantress, Bat Rider, and Troll Warlord. So you look at that list right away, you see a few of them, you're like, yeah, Darkseer, well, Bat Rider right off the bat, duh. You knew that was going to happen. He got some really big nerfs to his early game, and that really hurt him. The Queen of Pain got a slight nerf. She's just been start losing now. Troll Warlord also that slight nerf. But the Night Stalker, this is probably the center of this whole conversation, just because of how that cycle. You know, we talked about it an episode or two ago about how that messes possibly with his first nighttime. You know, and I was trying to, you know, you said there was that one game where he was doing so well because he had a couple kills under his belt, then that nighttime hit, he killed Lifestealer and just snowballed and won the game. Well, in a typical game, I guess that doesn't happen. And when it says here, the average game, he's level 4.5 when he hits that nighttime. 4.5 is still level 2 Void. Level 4.5 is maybe a point in silence, depending on what you're doing, or it's just 2 in the Hunter in the Dark, or Hunter in the Night, whatever it is, the attack speed, move speed. So you're not that potent yet. You know, you really need to get another level or 2 under your belt before you can really start doing some damage. And it's apparently it's really impacting how he's done. Now, he had a 62% win rate in 6.78. Now it's down. Well, I can't do that math. But oh wait, minus 21%. I can do it. Someone else did it for me. He's down to a 40% win rate, which is much lower. So, I mean, does this kind of throw you for a curve, or is this what you were starting to think after we talked about it?
I don't think it like accurately displays like what's happening yet. In part because it's so early into the patch, and also in part because I would like to know the number of games that Night Stalker was picked in 6.78. Because I think what the thing to like really take away from this is the fact that Night Stalker's been picked a bunch of times already, very early into this patch, is over 40 games played, which was obviously not the case when 6.78 hit. In 6.78, you look at Night Stalker as a really specific pick for a really specific lineup, when you really wanted that, you know, hyper aggression, when you wanted the silence specifically, and you were interested in maybe getting map control out of the Aghanim Scepter. Now we see Night Stalker in a way that we really haven't seen Night Stalker before. We're seeing him in a tri-lane, which is not really something that we got to see much of at all in the past. We're seeing him, you know, under these new conditions, and you know, I don't mind that he winds up seeing this like 20% drop rate, because I think people are doing a lot of crazy stuff with him, and of course people don't really necessarily know exactly how to play him now in these new circumstances, and I would suspect that by now his win rate has probably improved from when this was done 6 days ago. And you know, I'm really curious to see if, you know, by the end of this patch, or maybe a month or two from now, you know, what the impact really is. You know, are there teams that really sort of get it down to a science, this tri-lane Night Stalker? Are there teams that start running in middle again just because he's awesome there as well? I'm just really curious to see how his story sort of develops from here, and I'm not really sure if I want to like pay much into the stats now, or, you know, read into this 20% swing too much.
Yeah, and I mean, it was the same with the wins. You know, we can only, this is just an initial stat. You know, these numbers will change. The Darkseer, I can't expect him to always be doing that poorly because he's such a strong hero. He'll probably come back from this pretty bad loss rate. But his vacuum, I mean, it is finally catching up to him. The fact that this cooldown just keeps going up and up and up. You know, vacuum, the whole point of him in team fights besides his wall. So, you know, it really is something essential. The Enchantress, I don't even want to look at, because honestly I don't believe that is really based on much at all. That's probably just based on the current games of these tournaments and how just teams are doing with her in general. I mean, she hasn't really gotten nerfed. She lost nighttime vision, which was, it was painful to a degree, but she did get that attack speed buff on her, her slow, and 10 attack speed slow, untouchable for the win. But still, I feel like in an aggressive meta, she still should be a very strong hero. So I don't honestly believe that this is too accurate for her. I don't know.
I think that it's something that the author sort of overlooked because he was like, oh, she gets a slight buff and she's doing worse. I think 1,000 nighttime vision is ridiculous. It's reduced by more than half. And this is a hero that is particularly good at, getting behind towers, ganking at a fairly early point in the game, which is now the 4-minute mark, right? So by the time she's level 3, level 4, she might be looking to gank. It's nighttime. She doesn't have the crazy advantage she used to have of being able to give, the information to her team of like, okay, this is where they are behind the tower. So okay, let's go now. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit harder for her to do those early ganks. I mean, yeah, if you want to just do like the early, let's just mow down the towers, like, yeah, that's great. I think she's still a great hero for that. But I think obviously, this is a hero that has always had trouble scaling into the late game without Aghanim Scepter, and without some other items on top of that. And now reducing her potential gank during night is something to really take into consideration. I mean, I'm sure Puppy is still going to have a fantastic win rate on the Enchantress, and I feel like he's probably the person that was playing him the most in 6.78 from what I was seeing. But I'm kind of surprised, but not... I'm surprised that it's like 15% might be my thing there. I'm surprised that it's that dramatic of a number.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It seems a bit over the top, but I'm pretty happy about, especially the Bat Rider loss rate. That's good. Let's keep it that way. I'm not saying I want to see him off the scene altogether, but it was just so much Bat Rider all the time that I didn't. I wanted to see more out there, and I think this has been a very great thing for the scene to have him nerfed the way he was. Queen of Pain, if people just buy the Navi skin that I have for her, I think they'd win a lot more often. It really makes me feel like a better player when I'm using that skin, or at least it looks cooler. So I don't know. It seems like a good way to go.
Yeah, that's certainly a fact, right?
Certainly,
100% fact.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's a nerf to her initial early game.
Right.
The change that happened, that 110%, the 110 mana cost on the Shadow Strike.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, beyond that, it's a buff, right? So after level 2, I believe, it's an improvement. I'm sort of okay with that. I mean, I already mentioned before that I kind of like the way that Viper was also changed, and now that Queen of Pain gets this little bit of a nerf, now she's not necessarily the melee killer in the middle lane. Very early on, it might be Viper to really step up and do that. But I still think that she's a great hero, and especially in the way that the game's working out and being skirmishy and being able to get around, that I think her numbers will bounce back. I don't really think that this is necessarily a permanent thing for her.
No, absolutely not. Queen of Pain is a very strong hero, and maybe when Sing Sing stops playing Mirana and goes back to Queen of Pain, maybe we'll see that number go up again. I'm not sure, but yeah. So very interesting article for sure. Doom is back is the main thing you should all focus on. I'm really telling you guys, it's just from the bottom of my heart because I love you all. Play Doom now. Just seriously play Doom now. I'm surprised BLM didn't do 100 games of Doom, but maybe that would just, you start getting sick of Doom every game. I mean, I don't know if you really can get sick of that, to be honest. It's pretty awesome, but either way, this is an interesting article. Y'all should really check it out and see what how it compares to your pub experiences. Do you find similar things with this? I mean, let us know what you're thinking as well.
I also have while we're, I guess, doing our little send-off here, much respect for anybody else who wants to do 100 games of anybody.
Yes.
Come join me. I didn't really contemplate how long that would take to do when I first agreed to do this. But
At least 50 hours, I would say, of gameplay. So
I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna be swell. So come join me. Somebody pick their favorite hero from the patch and give it 100 games. It'll be swell, I promise.
I will never do that.
Okay.
I'll do a 20 or something. And I'll say that's the best I can do because
it'll still take you like a year.
It will. It'll take easily. No, it will. That's the sad part. But yeah.
But I think all in all, well done, sir.
You too.
Another great episode of the DoD On Demand podcast. Please, like we were saying earlier, guys, if you have any ideas for us to help expand the market, to put the word out there, we just certainly appreciate you guys trying to tell all your friends about these shenanigans that go on every Tuesday evening and show up on the Stitcher, on the YouTube, and of course you can always find us on the Facebook.com/DoDOnDemand, at DoDOnDemand on Twitter. And until next time, guys, play some Dota, have some fun out there. See you next week.